Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Senate.
Hello there, and welcome to the video. Today, we will be discussing the character rankings for the Sith Eternal Emperor Farming Guide. Speaking of the Sith Eternal Farming Guide, the original power rankings were posted on that video card in the top right-hand corner. And basically that video just was the overall guide of Sith Eternal and which characters to farm first. Now, it's a bit later, 6 to 8 months later, and there's been quite a few changes. There's been, obviously, the Great Nerf of 2020, as they call it, and there's been plenty of other balance changes, like Royal Guard rework, Darth Sidious Omicron, that has shaken up the Sith Eternal tier list, and I fear that this guide or the previous guide, is not relevant enough, so decided to post another one. The character rankings are my opinion, and they're my opinion on viability. Later in the video, we will discuss which characters to relic first, which characters that are high priority farms, and which ones that you can put them off for later. So we'll go to the rankings right away. The first one is Jedi Knight Anakin. I believe he is the most viable out of the Sith Eternal farms. He's gone up one, I believe, from the previous rankings, and that's basically just because Vader went down. With the introduction of Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron, Anakin has seen lots of viability, and his Zeta, it's not as useful anymore, because occasionally, at least you typically want to be running Anakin under Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron, and not Padme, at least for early to mid-game. Anakin drops huge hits, and he's great at Relic 7, where you need him for Sith Eternal. He also has a top-tier ship that is the core of the Negotiator fleet, and he's a rather easy farm. I believe they did make a change though, so he's not in Cantina anymore. So he'll be a little bit take a little bit longer to get, but he's still a great character. He's an older character, no Chirotech required, relatively cheap to gear, and he has a great damage output, and that makes him number 1 on this list. Moving on, number 2, Admiral Piet. He's moved up quite a few on this one. I think like 3 or 4 since the last one, but the main reason why he's not number 1 is because, obviously, Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron is just that good. It did see a nerf, but the nerf is against GLs, takes down some of the damage, but Anakin can still completely nuke people. But now on the topic of Piet. Piet is the core of the Imperial Troopers team, along with Veers. Piet he used to be a single farm, so used to be a bit further down on the list because he's harder to access, but now he's easier to access. He's an accelerated farm like every other character, and he has so much viability. There's so much to talk about in this character. Emperor's Trap is a must-have Zeta if you want your Piet up there in the Sith Eternal farm. One of them, definitely the must-have Zetas behind Merciless Massacre and potentially Aggressive Tactician, is you want Emperor's Trap. You can't really do you can't do a great C farm without Emperor's Trap and the Imperial Troopers rolling. So a Suborbital Strike, it's an alright Zeta. I got it for the days mainly. The Fear's kind of nice, but it's only niche uses. It's not a required Zeta. Piet, you typically want to make him as fast as possible unless you're running a Moff Gideon. He's also a great support, keeps the capabilities rolling, and once he dies, Emperor's Trap goes down. So you want to prevent Piet from dying. And also, Piet is the core of the Imperial Troopers HSTR run, which I might post a video at some point talking about that, but really the main downside of him is he requires lots of Chirotech, which is not very early game friendly, but I believe he's the only one on the Sith Eternal farm that requires Chirotech before the finisher. So, moving on, the part everyone was waiting for, Darth Vader. I mean, why do people click on this video? It's for Darth Vader, huh? Unlike Anakin, his ship is not very good. It's alright, I suppose. Empire fleets aren't necessarily the hottest new thing on the market, but Vader is still good. That's the bottom line. Everybody's devastated after his nerf. He's still good. I feel like Piet and Anakin moved up more than Vader actually moved down, but Merciless is still great. The basic does not more damage now, but it's got better utilities, better ability block chance, and Vader is still a solid character. He can't kill the teams that he once did. He is rather cheap to gear though. The shards come a bit slower, but his ship isn't too great, and some of his Zetas the only Zeta you really need is Merciless Massacre, and he can work with pretty much any comp or of Empire. Vader puts the team on his back, so to say, and he can carry weaker teams. So then we have Palpatine. Yes, I know. We can re-roll the clip of me saying that Palpatine's completely irrelevant and he's overrated. So Emperor Palpatine is a very overrated character. It's my opinion. He'll probably get much better when Mara Jade comes out, but that's a completely different story. Palpatine is still completely irrelevant and overrated. Well, not completely irrelevant because of Mara Jade, which I will mention later. Mara Jade just carries Palpatine, which is, I mean, it's to be expected. Homework for today's video: try running a Palpatine control team without Mara Jade. Have fun with that. But yeah, Mara Jade has brought Palpatine to new heights of viabilities via carrying him, and I feel like he still doesn't have much use, at least in my opinion. His ship, I mean, obviously I don't have it, but it seems pretty mediocre from my testing against Chimera Empire fleets. But yeah, his Crackling Doom is not required for the Sith Eternal tier. Neither is Emperor of the Galactic Empire. But Emperor of the Galactic Empire is a great Zeta for the Mara Jade control team. The Mara Jade control team doesn't have much DPS, but I just run it with, I think, Palpatine, Thrawn, Krennic, Tarkin, Mara Jade, and you just control the enemy team, puts debuffs on them, puts stuns on them, keep them in check, keep their damage to a minimum, and I think we're good. He's rather easy to get because all you just need to do is farm Phoenix. Phoenix will obviously be a required farm for Sith Eternal. You need to get your Thrawn. There's not really a whole lot to say about him. He's gotten much better because of Mara Jade, but Sith Marauder. I can smell the controversy here. Senate, why'd you put Sith Marauder at number 5 and not so and so? No. Sith Marauder, this is my opinion. People sleep on Sith Marauder too much. He can solo. At Relic 7, he can solo some decent, like, Gear 9, Gear 10 Geos. He does really well with Trail. He does insane amounts of damage in a Darth Revan team, which is another character that you might want to farm. And he's still very viable against non-assist teams. His ship, I have no experience with his ship. From testing it or testing against it, it doesn't seem too special. It's just another old tank. But yeah, he has some great damage potential. He hits pretty hard, decreases enemies' max health, and he's got an obscene amount of health steal, and can easily time out teams such as like Rebel fighters or Geos because of the extreme amount of buffs that they have and the attacks out of turn. He's a nightmare to get through when I'm running a Troopers counter versus Darth Revan because he just keeps stacking health and health and health due to the buffs on my team. And yeah, that's pretty much all to say about him. He's required at Relic 7 though, which is a drawback, but Sith Marauder Relic 7 is a definitely worthwhile Relic 7. People sleep on Sith Marauder, and there's a good portion of people who sleep on Sith Marauder that doesn't even know who he does, or doesn't know what he does. Sith Marauder is a great pick, and he can solo some early game teams for you in the early goings of the Sith Eternal farm. He'll still be viable later against seed countering assist heavy teams and stuff like that, but yeah. Sith Marauder's in a pain to deal with, a pain to clean up, and that's why he's number 5 on this list. Number 6, General Veers. You cannot have a great Imperial Troopers team other than like Iden or maybe Gideon without General Veers' lead. That's where the Super Troopers come from, and this main Zeta right here, Aggressive Tactician, he's a bit lower on this list because you really need Aggressive Tactician Zeta for him to be viable. He's very reliant on that one Zeta. I know, yeah, Vader is too, but Vader is a higher ceiling than Veers. Veers is a bit higher on the list than, say, Stark, for example. It's because Veers cannot really die either, because you'll lose the Aggressive Tactician unique if Veers dies. You'll still have the Imperial Assault Commander leader, which is why he's a bit lower than Piet. It's because You need Veers at a decently high gear so he won't die if the enemy team gets a turn. But obviously, it doesn't really matter what gear he's at if the enemy team doesn't take a turn, because the General Veers is very little damage output, and he's supposed to play control support and make sure your team is going at high strength. He's also rather easy to get. Well, not really anymore. He's just a single hard farm, but he's not absurd to get. Number 7, Count Dooku. This is obviously the rankings. I know it's for early game. Count Dooku. Where should I start with him? He's a very annoying character early game. He can solo some decent teams, and this Zeta, he's not completely reliant on the Zeta, but the Zeta makes him a pain to deal with. I always advocate for early game Dookus if you want to, or early to mid game Dookus where if you want to just be a pain or be able to solo teams, you need a full set of 6 tenacity mods with a tenacity cross. That's my only 6E mod there, is the tenacity cross. You need as much tenacity on him as possible, because you cannot afford your Dooku being stunned or dazed or something, preventing him from being annoying, because that's Dooku's entire role, is to be annoying. But yeah, Dooku, he's required at Relic 6, which is rather annoying. He could have some kind of viability down the line in late game. He's rather easy to get, and there's not really many downsides to Count Dooku. He's very annoying to deal with. Some early game players may not have a solution to him, and his leader's alright, but Dooku is just a pain. That's really all he is. He's just a pain. He's especially a pain under like a Newt lead and Jango Fett. I use that team very often in 3v3, where Newt just spams his extortion. Jango Fett gets just hides in damage immunity and tries to nuke people, and then Dooku can play control with his stuns and his counterattacks. Number 8, Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's taken a hit. He's definitely taken a hit. I believe he was like number 3 or number 4 on my old rankings, but yeah, not being able to fracture GLs is pretty big hit. And also, he is not incredibly reliant on high relic levels, because he's just utility. He can hold down people. He's got a nice turn meter swap. I don't think either of his Zetas are particularly needed. I don't have any Zetas on Thrawn. I just mainly use him for the turn meter swap. The fracture can be nice in certain instances, but I think the most mileage I get use out of Thrawn is turn meter swapping to Mara Jade in a Palpatine control team, or fracturing Anakin when I'm going up against a Qui-Gon Jinn Omicron. His ship is alright, I suppose, but it's also required on getting a Rebel fleet up and running. You have to get Home 1, you have to, well, of course you have Home 1, but you have to get a Rebel fleet up, you have to get them all to 7-star, Home 1 7-star, to get a viable Chimera fleet, and just a bit of a pain. Thrawn is most viable at high speeds, which I don't remember what my Thrawn speed is, 310. I suppose that's alright, maybe a bit below average, but he'll outrun most people at my level. And I forgot to mention, Thrawn also has to be acquired from Phoenix. Palpatine does not, but Phoenix is recommended. Number 9, Tarkin. Tarkin's pretty much up here from his ship. There's nothing really about to say about him. His shards are very easy to get, which I really like. And I think all the base fleet commanders can be gotten from the Squad Arena store. And pretty much the only use I ever have for him is just slap more debuffs onto a Mara Jade control team, and you can take away turn meter with ultimate firepower. His Zeta's not really worth it, in my opinion, but use for Tarkin except for his ship, and he's just another filler in Mara Jade control. But his ship is pretty good, and there's plenty of Empire fleets that run Tarkin instead of Thrawn, because Thrawn is a very slow base speed with his capital ship. And that's rather annoying. Number 10, Mob Enforcer's a placeholder for Imperial TIE Bomber. It's very hard to rank Imperial TIE Bomber on a level with characters. and I don't really know if this accurately reflects his rank. There's your PSA. But I do like Imperial TIE Bomber. I feel like he'd be much better in an Empire fleet, though, because I just slap him in wherever. You see him occasionally in Negotiator fleets, and he still has some viability because he has a full team buff dispel with ships, and he also spams a lot of burning. Burning is a pain to deal with, and he also has target lock, and he can pull up taunts frequently. He hard counters rebels, which is a very nice utility and very handy when going up against rebel fleets with the irresistible burning and all the damage penalties while attacking out of turn. And he's decently hard to get, though. He's a single farm, and he also comes on a node with Queel, which is a nice plus if you want to go for Executor afterwards, because you're going to need Beskar Mando. There's not really a whole lot to say about Imperial TIE Bomber, but he's still pretty good, and it's very hard to rank ships on a level with characters. So I'd say Imperial TIE Bomber is around rank 10. Number 11, Royal Guard. He's gone up quite a bit because of his Zeta, which I have not applied. So, but his Zeta pretty much doubles his health. This is very useful with like a Lord Vader team, but obviously I don't have Lord Vader. His ship is obviously the same as Palpatine's, as much on Royal Guard if you have the Zeta, because you need more health, because the health is the one that doubles and not the protection. Royal Guard used to be just defense up, but now he can pull up taunts, he can pull up health up, defense up as he could before, and retribution. He's still a very good utility, and he's also got a stun and speed down on the basic. He'll be a bit annoying to deal with, and he also has that passive taunt that can keep popping up when you start dropping Empire, or dropping any teammates actually low. But he's far better than he was before, and I believe he's also better than the people below him. Speaking of the people below him, we have Darth Maul. Darth Maul, I feel like the only thing he's ever used for is Maul Lead. Scimitar can be annoying occasionally to deal with. Scimitar is also annoying to farm. Darth Maul, I believe he's a guild store farm, so that'll be a bit annoying, trying to use shards for Darth Maul instead of Carbantes and other such gear, other such raid gear you need. I kind of half-assed modding on him, because I don't really use him very often except for Maul Lead. Maul Lead has some niche uses. Maul has a full team days. That's pretty much all he's used for. He can solo some weaker end teams when he's Relic 4, such as like Phoenix, where he can, if he can just take one of them out, 100% turn meter, bonus turn, bonus damage, and his Power of Hatred unique will start stacking up. But outside of that, there's no real use for Maul, in my opinion. However, it will be noted that allegedly the Ravager is supposed to be coming out, and that is a Sith capital ship, I believe Darth Nihilus's. So we're probably gonna see the Maul ship have more viability, so maybe he could be better later. Obviously you will have to farm every single one of these characters, but I feel like knowing viability would definitely help Relic Order. Colonel Stark, number 13. I had him quite a bit higher on this list, because yes, he's an Imperial Trooper, but there's not a whole lot of viability for him, besides having him as just a plug-and-play in Imperial Troopers. If you're down a Dark Trooper, down a Range Trooper, down a Moff Gideon, maybe, but I feel like the ideal Troopers team for Imperial Troopers would always be Veers Lead, Piet, Gideon, Dark Trooper, and Range Trooper. Stark doesn't really fit in, but he is nice with his unique Zeta, pulling away turn meter. But yeah, I don't really know about him. He has defense down on the basic, which is kind of nice with running Dark Trooper. What I currently run is I have a very weak Range Trooper, which I need to work on him. I run the three relics for Sith Eternal farm, and then Gideon and Dark Trooper. Occasionally I sub Stark for range or Gideon for range, depending on the scenario. But yeah, Stark is another guild store farm. but he'll be more useful because he's an Imperial Trooper. I know, yeah, Maul's ranked ahead of him. That's mainly because of the Scimitar and also because of Maul lead. But Stark is a good character, but he's just outclassed by the other Imperial Troopers. He's not bad, he's just outclassed. And now number 14, Darth Shidious, as I always say. Oh boy. He would be number 15 if it wasn't for his Omicron. And his Omicron requires you to get this shitty Zeta. And obviously you can do the C event without the Zeta. It's a bit more RNG reliant, though. I guess it is a bit more difficult, but it's more RNG reliant if you do not have the Zeta on statistically. I don't recommend putting it on. What's it called? I think you guys should save your Zetas for something that is much better than this. Sidious can be annoying at high speeds because he has an AoE. He can just snipe a bunch of banners. That's typically 5 banners there, and say like a Mole lead team where his plus 20% turn meter at the beginning of the game, you can just snipe some banners, and that's really all he's used for. He's got healing immunity, which can help clean up like crews and yeah, pretty much just any high health healing tank. But yeah, he can ignore defense. I guess that's nice a bit. He's got some damage over times, exposes. But yeah, he's kind of lackluster, I have to say. He's a rather easy farm, though, and like I said, but he's Relic 7, so he's required of Relic 7. This is too much resources for a character that's not worth your time. But I feel like the only upside is his Omicron, which, yes, as I said before, requires you to get this shitty Zeta. But yeah, the Omicron doesn't look terrible, and Territory Wars is more relevant now. So that Omicron is what's preventing Shidious from being number 15. And number 15, Krennic. What can I say about him? He's a single hard node farm from I think 9D or 9C or something. I don't know if it was light side or dark side. I don't remember, but one of them. It's a bit annoying to get him up. You obviously have to start on him when you're like level 82, 85. You can't farm him up in the background, and I certainly wouldn't in an early game because he's not too good. His lead can be all right at times, just putting ability block on everyone. But you also need a critical hit for him, so you can't just throw out 2 bomb AoEs and expect to get full team ability blocks. So, whilst I was editing this video, CG decided to post a direct-to-Krennic Omicron, and it's now been added to the game. Great. I mean, I started recording this a few days ago, and it's already updated. But in all seriousness, it's a pretty bad Omicron. It really relies on Death Trooper being there, and you want Death Trooper in either Imperial Troopers or Iden Versio, so I don't think it changes much. I'd still put him at number 15. On to the video. He's got utility here, but if it was just everything could be a stun, then that would be better than just role specific. He's got this. He's better with Death Trooper, I know, but Death Trooper you typically want to be using with Imperial Troopers, and I don't see Krennic. I've never seen a Krennic lead in Grand Arena, even from Sith Eternal rushers. He's alright, I have to say, in territory battles, which sometimes in Geonosis territory battles, I put him in with my Imperial Troopers team. He doesn't need any good mods, you can just half-ass him like I did on Sidious, and here, and Maul. But yeah, Krennic, he's a bit of a disappointment. I wish he got Imperial Trooper tag, but unfortunate, though. So the last portion of this is high priority relics. These are the 5 that I believe you should get up early. These are, in my opinion, should be your first 5 relics of the Sith Eternal journey. In no particular order: Anakin, Vader, Marauder, Dooku, Piet. Everybody knows why Anakin's there. Everyone knows why Vader's there. Everyone knows why Piet's there. Marauder, people constantly sleep on Marauder. I know there's trail lead going or floating around and stuff, but as long as Marauder can survive the hit from Spy, he can pretty much solo Geonosian teams. It's because of his unique right here. His unique makes him very good. With all of these stacking bonuses and what's it called? The abilities the attacks out of turn gives him 20% turn meter. He's also got a ship. Alright ship. but he has a crazy high ceiling of damage, and that's another reason to farm Darth Revan. It's because of Sith Marauder. Sith Marauder can carry a Darth Revan team because he has an obscene damage output. Dooku, yeah, I'll need to explain Dooku a bit too. He'll kind of carry a Separatist team by himself, because we all know Anakin, Vader, they can carry teams by themselves. So can Dooku. Dooku can carry a Separatist team. They won't be as effective as Anakin or Vader, which is why Anakin and Vader are higher up on the list. But Dooku's team can still do pretty well. His Zeta is not required, but he's much better with the Zeta. If you want your Dooku to be more survivable, which is the point of Dooku, you definitely need the Zeta on him. It's not a must-have Zeta, but it's definitely a recommended one. Mid-priority relics. Veers, Palpatine, Thrawn, Tarkin, Rogard. None of these are in a rush. None of these are in a rush. High-priority relics, I would say they're in a rush. But General Veers, you want him a semi-high gear because you don't want him dying. Yeah, you really just don't want Veers to die. He doesn't have very much damage output. He gets more speed, obviously, the higher gear you go. But characters like Piet, Veers you don't need moving first. Piet you do need moving first. Because Piet needs to kickstart the Imperial Trooper turn me to train. And Emperor Palpatine, he's just more of a control. Thrawn is just control. Tarkin's control. Royal Guard, I mean, more health, I suppose, but that's really all you get from. Duly noted that Tarkin and Thrawn both have capital ships, so depending on which one you run, you might want to take one of those higher gear than the other because you want a strong fleet in the Sith Eternal farm, because Sith Eternal gives you pretty much no ships, except for Imperial TIE Bomber, which both of them are Empire, so they'll do all right with Imperial TIE Bomber. Low priority relics would be Maul, Sidious, Starkin. I don't know why I put Tarkin in there twice. Maul, he doesn't really need to be relicked. I think the only viability you'll be getting out of him is the Zeta. You could relic him to be able to, like, solo teams and stuff. But, yeah, Sidious is terrible. That's just the bottom line. The only way to get him viable is to spend the Zeta, which is a terrible Zeta. I definitely advise against it. And unless you're in an incredibly high-end guild, which requires maximum efficiency on territory wars, I don't really see a point in the Sidious Zeta. And to even get maximum efficiency in territory wars, you need the Omicron. And the Omicron's pretty expensive too, and all the Omicrons are really good, so. Yeah, the Sidious Omicron isn't bad, but it also requires you to put on the Zeta, which is bad. The Zeta is very bad. And you don't even need it for the Sith Eternal event, so. Yeah. Stark, like I said earlier, he's alright, but he's outclassed. And then this last tier, Krennic. Enough said. Enough said. So that's basically all for today. Hope you guys enjoys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. $1 billion company.